Facebook still?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're right. You're good.
Okay. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to EMAX podcast and coffee at a shared universe. Apologize for the delay. We had some technical difficulties. Believe it or not, I was told you couldn't hear me through my mic. So, that we all know, as Jeremy pointed out, that we all know is I'm not a quiet person and you can't hear me. We know there's a problem. So it took us a little bit of time to get that figured out, but welcome. I'm here in the podcast studio, a shared universe, with Chris on the board and my co-host Stacey Cavanaugh from Provident Bank. And we have joining us on StreamYard, not Zoom. Right? Something a little different. Jeremy Grunin, he had to take a trip to Florida, so he decided, have computer will travel and could join us from sunny Florida, where it's a bit warmer than our chilly morning this morning that we had. So, yeah. It was chilly.
The pandemic has opened us up to so many ways that we can see, people like Jeremy or others and be able to communicate. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but we're happy to see you today.
Endless hours of conversation on that subject. So, we're here because we're talking about Spinnaker. We've had all of our Spinnaker guests. I think Jeremy's our last Spinnaker guest to join us on the podcast. But before we get into that, I did want to let people know that we are having an after hours this Friday. Well, Jennifer, did you want to wake up and try this all again today because you can't think of anything? We are having a business after hours on Tuesday at Long Branch Distillery. So everybody's invited to join us there. And then we are going to concentrate in June and July on some big events. So we are canceling our other events. But on June 9th, we have Spinnaker. On June 17th, I think, is the date. There's going to be another ENG after hours, which is awesome. That's EMAX Next Generation. They're really nice. They're younger, but they let the older people come too. So we really like that. They let us feel young for a little while and drink with them. So we kind of really like them. We keep them around. And then we have on July 27th, we have what used to be our beach bash, but because this year we're having it on the river and not on the beach, we're calling it Christmas in July. So it'll be at the Elks Club in their backyard, on the river, bonfire, band, food, drink, party, outside, open air, with a Christmas theme, because why not, So that's what's coming up this summer. We're going to, to cut back a little bit on events, let people start to enjoy life, take vacations that they haven't taken in over a year, and we're going to concentrate. So in September we come back really strong, much better plan, and but of course we're always here to help our businesses with whatever they need: networking, referrals, information, legislative information. What else do we do? What do we do, Stacey?
You connect people with other people.
I do connect people with other people. You're right. Thanks. Thanks. So, let's say, Stace, let's tell everybody why you're here today. What do you do?
Oh, well, I do work for Provident Bank. That's not that interesting, although wonderful.
I was going to say, because we all know, everybody who listens to this podcast knows Provident Bank is extremely special in the chamber.
We are very special.
Because of, that other person that's been involved for
We're not giving him any naming today.
We're not crediting him today.
No.
He'll be so disappointed.
Raymond Ekdorf.
Oh, yeah, him.
But I'm also a member of the Spinnaker committee,
yes,
and have been for the past 3 years. I'm very, very proud of not just connecting people at this event, but that the people we get to recognize. And I think if just everyone knew the time and we put into discussing our candidates and our awardees, and it's just amazing. So really, really wonderful people. And it's always the right people getting the award for the right reason.
I agree. So with that, let's spend a lot of time with Jeremy today. Since he's down in Florida, we might as well make it worth his time since he's sitting in a sunny window instead of the sunny backyard patio. So, right? So Jeremy, welcome.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out this is my dad's Zoom location. And the Cisco put it on the corner of a desk with a window with glare, so I'm trying to navigate this. But we're fighting through.
He needs to have some Zoom instruction. You watch those videos, he needs a halo light coming at him and the whole,
I need a halo light.
Yeah. I don't know, Jeremy. From everything I've heard about you, you have your own halo. Like, you're one of those special angels that has your own halo because you do so much good stuff.
Well, that's very kind of you. Clearly, no angel, as Stacey tell you offline.
I was the one saying you were an angel.
She did. She told us. She's the one that told. Well, it's really, so here's the thing. I have heard about Jeremy Grunin and the Grunin Foundation for years through people who know you. But I had never met you. And everybody's like, don't you know him? I'm like, no, I don't know him. And then Stacey comes and we're sitting and we're discussing who we want to nominate and who, ideas and why. And Stacey brings your name up and starts talking about you. And I want to say it couldn't have been, I don't know, like a month later that you and I end up on the same call with Vin Gopal. So to be in the same level with Jeremy Grunin to me was like really impressive, right? Oh, Chris is shaking his head in here too, so you're like well known. He's like shaking his head. So yeah.
You guys talk to my ex-wife about that.
I personally have.
Yeah. So you were asked by Senator Gopal to.
So it was really great, and I think it's a great place to start. Senator Gopal, first of all, in full transparency, Senator Gopal is a Democrat. I'm a Republican. And I think this is the way government is supposed to work, and that's why I love Senator Gopal so much. He asked me to run doing a kind of Monmouth County committee to kind of take from the grassroots up the issues for folks dealing with relative to COVID and how he helped on state level. And he asked me to run the non-faith-based group, which scared me very much because this is not my but it was honestly a great experience with a lot of great folks who we were able to get things done. The best example I can bring is that Pastor Porter from church in Red Bank. On one call, brought up the fact that testing at the time was a real access issue. Folks couldn't get to spots where tests were being administered. And his thought was, and rightfully so, that why are we not looking through faith agencies, work through our church, work through our synagogues, and making those the points of testing. I thought it was we had a good valid point. We brought it up to the senator, and then actually I called. We ended up calling County Commissioner Arnone, the Commissioner Director, I say, who again Republican, who go call to offer a program where we put up some money, the county put up carry money, we were able to open 7 sites across county spots where there was access, so you can get testing done. And did hundreds of tests. And so I think that's the way government's supposed to work. That's the way people are supposed to be listening to the level and county level, and it was really warmed my heart to see us be able to get things like that done.
Yeah, that was a great honor to be asked by Senator Gopal to sit on that committee. I was assigned to the Jersey Shore Recovery subcommittee under Mary Lou Halverson, who was the chair of the Hospitality and Restaurant and Hospitality Association for the state. So that was really amazing. Hands, on the hardest, working really closely with the people in the hardest hit industries. And then I also felt that with my businesses that I represent through the chamber, that it would be very beneficial for me to sit with Jacqueline Mejas Fuertes, who was running the small business. So I sat on 2 councils, and again, the Small Business Council noticed that one of the things that was going on was that the communication and the messaging was really, really all over the place. And store owners were still having trouble getting people to wear masks. Nobody was following rules. So our small business came up with an ad hoc committee, and we created Keep Mama Safe. And which we approached Senator Arnone with, Senator Gopal. He said, we can't get it done at the state level, but why don't you call, County Commissioner Director Tom Arnone? And he put the county right on it, spent money. There's a website. I know we as a chamber have the signs up in our office. We sent them to all of our members to use, and it's basically the same. We were going for the same signage in every place so that it would be more consistent. When people would come into Monmouth County, they would know exactly what was expected of them. So yes, I think we got a lot done. And again, one of the things I love about Senator Gopal is the ability to work across party lines. And I also find County Commissioner Arnone and the other county commissioners very, very welcome to that as well, to do what's best for the constituents. So it's really
and I can say that's something. Unfortunately, it's not the case across the state, but very, very much the case in Monmouth County. Unless there's a Monmouth County.
Yeah, I agree. So, on top of that, what else do you do, sir?
So I am the president of the Grunin Foundation. We support granting the arts, education, and healthcare under the kind of the umbrella of economic excellence. We also do a capacity building series called Catapult Capacity. It's not just our grantees, but for all nonprofits in Monmouth County, Monmouth County. The legal areas are Eyes and Tide for boats. And the longer the nonprofit community is together, the arts community. We work ecosystem development, which is a fancy way of saying on programs that are really focused on system change. So that's what I do kind of on the foundation side, and then in Grunin Holdings, I'm an investor. I'm part of a restaurant, a couple of florists. We're putting a drug rehab facility in Pound River. Have my hands in a few things.
I have heard that you're really one of those underperformers who likes to just sit around and ride on the coattails of everyone else. Yeah, I've heard that.
I do have to give massive credit. Obviously, my parents were incredible hard workers and did a lot of great. They did a lot of great things to enable me to be able to carry up to a large extent. And so like my dad always says, he put a lot of years making money. I have an easier job of getting most of it away. So it works out well.
Yeah, you like that? You like spending someone else's money? That's always really cool. I excel at that myself.
My professional background before I came back home, I was a district manager for New York. I ran 60 clubs for New York Sports Club. The gyms. I ran districts for Circuit City, for Nobody Beats the Wiz, for Electronics Expo, for Borders Books, for Toys R Us. And if you think about it, those are a lot of companies that are now out of business. Mm-hmm. So I was always very good at putting folks out of business and spending money.
One of your favorite claims to fame, is it?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I name these companies that, if anybody under 30 years old is like, what are those? What did you want?
Right?
What do you mean?
It's like you date yourself so much if you just say something that was commonplace in your life. You just really do. You totally date yourself. It's embarrassing.
I just have to interject. So as far as the foundation and all the wonderful things that they do, the grant making is almost the smallest part of it, in my opinion. They're making impactful change. They, the things that Jeremy and his teams do to support the community, the nonprofits, and an educational support resources, getting people from all over that, especially to the Catapult series, to help. It's really impactful spending. And we really, really all appreciate you, Jeremy, and everyone involved.
Thank you so much. And thank you for throwing me that alley-oop, because Heather Barberi, who's our executive director, is absolutely amazing. She works. I have never, you can say that I work hard, and I feel like a slacker compared to the amount of work that she puts in, and the time that she puts in on the phone with our nonprofit partners and folks in the community is unmatched. Kelly Fliller, who's our director of communications, is another one who just is, I've never seen someone with that kind of work ethic. And Jackie Rodeman deals regularly with my dad, which I think in and of itself, she deserves a separate award. So it's really an amazing team, and I'm so blessed to have. They always say surround yourself with folks who are more talented than yourself, and for me, fortunately, that's easy. But in my case, I found a lot of talented folks that do a lot of great work for us and for the community.
Great. I want to give a shout out to David Hicks, who just joined us. Good morning, David. Thanks for joining. So I agree about the one of the things so my background before taking over at the Chamber was nonprofit 501c3s, because the Chamber is a nonprofit, but it's a 501c6. So the C3s are different because you raise money to give it away. And the C6 raises money. Actually, the biggest difference, I think, is C6s are allowed to lobby. and C3s cannot lobby. And what's interesting is most small chambers do not lobby. We're involved with bigger chambers that do the lobbying for us, keep us abreast of stuff, NJBIA, the New Jersey State Chamber, which then is very closely related to the US Chamber. So we actually ended up in the same boat that a lot of the other businesses did, where that chambers, as a nonprofit, were not able to apply because of C6 for a lot of the loans and stuff. But we kept running because we knew how important it was to help everybody else, because again, we're that nonprofit, help people mentality. So fundraising, fundraising is huge for any foundation, for any grants, for anybody who's providing assistance. How were you guys affected with that, and what did you do? Did you make any changes or anything to your fundraising abilities during COVID?
Well, so we're a family foundation, so we ourselves do not fundraise. We're completely self-funded in what we do. But I do sit on a number of boards, I think 18 currently, these are many organizations had to shift gears. And, I think that it was easy. We started a program early on where we were giving out Zoom accounts to nonprofits and funding Zoom accounts. And that was actually very helpful, I think, for a lot of folks. I think what went well was that nonprofits were able to quickly understand that they had to switch to a virtual environment. The problem is figuring out how to raise money in a virtual environment, because it's not as easy. It's certainly not easy charging for content virtually.
Right.
And certainly, as we've seen over the last 6 months, the Zoom fatigue has been huge. And so that's been a real issue. I think what we've seen is that organizations that have really built the muscles around fundraising through major gifts, and belly to belly with businesses like a Provident Bank, or with individual funders or family foundations, they were able to survive, and they were able to appeal directly to those organizations for support. And those that built their war chest completely on events and gatherings struggled, and many of them have frankly either shut down or went completely dark during COVID. So it's been a mixed bag, but I think it's really shed light on the fact that folks need to focus on their pipelines and how they raise money, and making sure that they're getting their story out there in an effective way, so that in times like this, you don't have to beg for money. Folks understand what you do, and they're going to support you.
That's very well put. Now, you said something that totally off of the foundation type thing, but you just said something that impressed me to no end, and I'd like to ask you a few questions about that. You sit on 18 boards.
Yeah.
Okay. I've tons of questions about that. Are they all nonprofits, or some of them professional boards? How do you? I don't.
This is another one my dad would beat me up about. I don't sit on any professional boards, and the difference is, for a lot of folks don't realize it. If you sit on the board of a bank, for example, you get paid, right? It's also a major fiduciary responsibility, and there's a lot of heavy lifting involved. You sit on the board of a nonprofit, you're completely volunteer, and that's just out of the goodness of your heart, or because frankly you want to network, or you believe in the organization. So because of the way we do our grant making, we're very hands-on. We don't just typically give dollars and say, good luck with that, let us know how it goes, we'll wait for your annual report. We like to partner with organizations to make sure that these projects are done and effective, right? And one of my pet peeves early on was, I can't stand a board meeting where folks sit around talking about how they're going to approach the funder, who's going to talk to the funder, how they're going to explain what went right or wrong. That takes up half of board meetings sometimes. And wouldn't it just be better if the funder was in the room and was hand in hand with you, trying to figure out how to do things? The problem is that in the world of philanthropy, there's a tremendous power dynamic that is hard to overcome, where if you have the money, you have the power. And we work very hard to be partners, and not lording over our partners that we're funding it. We don't have the answers. We just want to help get to them. So those are the organizations that I sit on. Count Basie Theaters, I'm the chair currently. I'm the immediate past chair of Fulfill, the food bank of Monmouth and Ocean County. I'm still on the executive board of the Toms River Chamber of Commerce. The Monmouth County Y, and then I set up some state, Greater Monmouth County Y. I apologize. I don't want Laura Gogans here to beat me up.
Laura would not like it if you got it wrong.
No, I know. I'm so sorry. And then I set up some state boards like the Council of New Jersey Grant Makers. I'm on the executive board. The Center for Nonprofits. I'm on their executive board. Those are more, really kind of looking at the sector in general. So I sit on the board at NYU Law School. Because we have a program there where my parents met and where they first got together. So it's a varied group, but a lot of good stuff.
What's your biggest piece of advice for existing board members what do you advise them to do to help the entity that they're sitting on the board for be successful? And then what do you say to people who are involved in an organization who may or may not be thinking about board positions?
When you say, okay, so let me take the first one first. I think that folks don't really understand when they get onto a board that it's their job to help the organization raise money, right? They think that they're just being there and gracing folks with their presence is enough, and that's great. It's good to be there, but no money, no mission, right? And a development person, a person who's raising money, is only as good as their board, right? If they have to be able to have door openers and folks that can introduce them to folks that can support the mission. And it's fundraising in nonprofits. It's interesting because I had the conversation very recently about the difference in fundraising for nonprofits versus fundraising for politics. When you're raising money as a politician or a legislator, people are giving you money for access, right? It's very much a bit of a quid pro quo, right? Like we know that we hope you get into office and then you're going to remember that I gave you money. So if I ever need you, you can help me, whether it's appearing somewhere, whether it's making a phone call for me or whatever. It's a very clear cut why you're giving money. When you give money to a nonprofit, it's simply because it resonates with you. And there's so many great causes that your nonprofit has to resonate more than any other nonprofit, right? And that's why you need board members to be able to have that elevator pitch and tell that story and bring more folks into the fold. So that would be number one. The second thing I would say there is although you often hear nonprofits should be run like businesses, they should be, but in some cases they're not businesses, right? In some cases, in the case of really making effective change, it's about partnering with other nonprofits, right? It's not about making the best burger in town. It's about how you can figure out how to effectuate real change and affect those that really need it, right? If you're a food pantry, you're not competing with the food pantry down the street. You're both together trying to figure out how to help get people off of that line and get their kids fed, right? So that's partnership. So it's not the same there. Where it is the same and where I get frustrated is you do need to invest in the organization. You need to spend money to make money, right? You can't, if you don't spend any money on advertising or marketing, then nobody's going to know your mission. If you don't pay for folks to raise money in development, then nobody's going to hear about what you're doing and you're not going to raise more money. It's not about how much money you spend on administrative costs. It's about how much money you bring into the organization. And in that way, it is like a business, right? Because you can't go 20 minutes without seeing a Ford commercial, right? Or a GM commercial, right? And guess what? They're spending money because they're going to sell a lot of cars. Now, the second question you asked, can you explain that one to me? Because I'm maybe it's because it's 9:30 in the morning and I'm not up on that one yet.
Well, we all know I didn't say anything in the beginning, so I may not have worded it right. I'm thinking about, and more so maybe I'm thinking about, you're sitting on the Toms River Chamber of Commerce. So right. Obviously I want to kind of ask you about why you're part of a Chamber of Commerce. But so for example, in a situation like that, when there's people on committees, or volunteering within the organization, how do you help them find or build that desire, and how do you find the ones that are willing to eventually move up and be those leaders on the board?
I
What
think
would
there's
you
a
advise those that, like, if they're thinking about it? You have, so we have, like, for example, our ENG committee, young people that's involved. They've chosen to run this committee. They've chosen to be involved. They want to be involved. How do you identify them, encourage them, and have them see future growth within that organization as a goal?
so first I'm gonna take it from the purely selfish angle,
Please do.
which is it looks good on a resume, right? I hate to say it like that, but it looks good on a resume. Number two, clients want to do business with you, right? If they see that you're civic minded and you're really focused on making change, especially if you look at our youngest generations right now, my kids, and I have three kids, 16, 18, and 20, and they're not even kids anymore, but when they can talk about politics and they can talk about the world in a completely different way and more advanced way than I certainly could at their ages, right? Like they're tuned in. Now, it's not always right because they get fed different things by social media and what have you.
Exactly.
Slants, but at least they're in the game, right? And they want to make a difference. And it's I think that's why you join a board, because you want to make a difference. Not because you want power or whatever it may be, but because it's about the amount of impact you can have as a human. And being a board member is the start of your journey. I hate the word journey, but it's the start of your journey. I'm saying it anyway. The start of your journey to making more impact as a human. And that's, ultimately, look, we all want to make a lot of money and we all want to support our families. But ultimately, I think we also want to be judged as people that gave back to our world. And that's why you join a board, because you can do more. It's hard with young folks, though, because it's hard to balance family and soccer weekends and this, that, and I certainly don't have to talk to Stacy about cheerleading, but it's a lot to juggle, but it can be extremely rewarding.
Jeremy, you mentioned about making an impact and making a difference. You seem to, and your group always seem to be ahead of things that are going on, the hot topic, things that are really going on just in the world. How does it work for you guys to identify before you're going to put together a new program? Like, how does that process work for you?
So we kind of have a mantra, and I think when Heather started, I think she was a little overwhelmed by it, but we never say no to a meeting, right? We even if it's completely out of left field, even if it's out of our counties, even if it seems to make zero sense, you never know when you're going to meet somebody that ultimately down the road is going to click with something else that you're doing, right? So you keep building that contact list and keep that going. And what you find is you can't. Too many foundations, too many nonprofit folks, I think, especially that sit in like the C-suite or what have you, they get lost in what's really happening on the ground level. And you get lost because you don't talk to those folks anymore. You don't talk. You're not really in there. You're reading grants all day. You're looking at paperwork all day, and you're sending emails. And you have to pick your nose up and pay attention, right? Heather and I probably talk like 8 times a day, right? And we're just, we try to go to as many conferences as we can. We try to pay attention at a high level as we can, and we bounce things off of each other all day long. And that's, I think that helps us to kind of see the way things are going. And we don't put programs together. We look at folks that, one of the questions that we like to ask is, what's a program for your organization that is really like you think would be incredibly impactful, but it never seems to have the funding, it never seems to make it to the next step. It's kind of like your pie in the sky program, like what you'd really love to do if you had the opportunity, but you just can't get to it. right? And that's when executive directors and CEOs of nonprofits, their eyes light up and they're like, oh, I really wanted to do this. I really want to do this, but I just can't get my board to get it. They don't really see it. It's not, and frankly, they're the folks that are living it every day, know what makes a difference. And that's how you put together great programs, because that's true partnership. And sitting on those boards, you're hearing the real issues day by day. So you're in there. You're in. We've been very slow. We were very slow on the social justice front. It wasn't until the murder of George Floyd that we really opened our eyes and started to see that that we have an issue. Certainly January 6th, we saw that we really have an issue. When the Capitol was surreal, it was like under siege. But we started to turn our attention kind of mid-pandemic to social justice and racial equity, and the way we did it was we asked folks from Brookdale, Georgian Court, Monmouth University, and OCC. We asked the presidents of each of those institutions to give us some folks who really focused on this, to help us with ideas about how we can make a difference. And we put together a group of 10 folks, and they led us down the road of a program that we're now implementing at Monmouth University in partnership with the 3 other institutions. And I was on a call for it yesterday. It's going to be like cutting edge and really kind of different, but really impactful and really I think have really open people's eyes to some different ways of looking at things. We didn't come up with that program. We convened folks, but they gave us the ideas, and that's I think how it's supposed to work.
Monmouth University, Georgian Court, Brookdale, OCC, and I apologize because I know there's one other school that's very involved as well, a little bit further north. But they've been amazing working together, coming up with programs of handling workforce development, handling getting people re-skilled, because the workforce has changed so much during the pandemic. And I'm on the Brookdale Council with the president, and it's amazing to listen to these representatives and talk about, and that what they really want to do is hear from us, hear from business owners, hear from the people in the community. What do you need? Because they really want to make it happen. They want to make it happen in their communities. They want to make it happen for their students. They're amazing, and they work together. And I think one of the things maybe during the pandemic that we've all realized is you get a lot more done if you work together than if you try to do everything and compete against each other. I know that goes right back to the Republican Democrat thing. It doesn't really exist if you're going for the same goal to save people and work together to build something good. So
I remember years ago meeting Jeremy, and then I was on the Greater Toms River Chamber and on some committees with him, and kind of just seeing the way his mind goes, or the way kind of, his thoughts on things and the questions that he would ask people. And then, and time passes, and here are these things he actually is living, these things that he says. I think you would agree with me, right? You don't always say everything the room wants to hear.
No.
Right?
No,
but he's authentic. And
I
actually
just feel like that's my job. I feel like I'm, listen, I'll come clean. I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. And I've always respected, not for some of the stuff that he does, which is over the top for me, but I've always loved his interviews, and I've always thought that he kind of speaks his mind. And I think I always used to tell people when I was in the private sector, I became because of so many companies that I worked for, I became a student of the interview process, right? And the question that I like the best is, when they say at the end, when you're being interviewed, do you have any questions for us? And folks go, well, what does job advancement, what does career advancement look like? How do you see the company in 5 years? Those are all great questions, but the best question you can ask is, what's the one thing that you see in my resume or you've seen from me today that's holding you back from hiring me?
Wow.
And that's an overcoming objections question. because it automatically puts the employer obviously on the defensive to say, well, I don't like the fact that you don't have experience in such and such. And it gives you that opportunity to say, well, and that's a great point. I agree with you. I would say the same thing if I were sitting in your seat, and here's why that's not an issue, right? And you can then overcome that objection. So for me, when I sit in a room and we're talking about programs or anything like that, I feel like I'm that guy, right? Let's throw it all on the table. Let's put up what the roadblocks are. Let's risk assess what can go wrong, because we don't want to have to like build the plane in the middle of flight. We want it to be built when we take off. So I'm lucky enough that I've built enough equity in the community now that I could do that and not worry about. I don't really have a lot of folks that I'm worried about answering to that I'm worried about the repercussions of it. Unfortunately, most folks can't do that because they have day jobs, right? And they don't want to piss anybody off. I'm kind of past that.
Yeah. I got that way when I turned 50. It is what it is. But I think there's a lot to be said for what Stacey said, and what you're agreeing to is authenticity leads to and honesty leads to trustworthiness. And people they may not want to hear what you're saying, but it doesn't mean there's not 3 other people in the room thinking the same thing. Just nobody's willing to say it. And I think, you can say the hard stuff as long as you say it tactfully and respectfully, and you speak that way, your honesty, your integrity grows, and then your relationships grow, and the trust in you grows, and your business grows, and your charity grows. I'm a huge believer in that.
Jeremy is a professional at filtering out fluff.
Fluff filterer.
Yes.
Okay, Jeremy Grunin, the fluff filterer. I like that.
He will just get right down to it, and then you're like, oh, yeah, you're right. I got to look into that a little more.
I like that.
Well, it's and I have a lot of things I'm not good at. There's a lot of things that I am not a detailed. Heather actually. To use a Jerry Maguire, Heather really completes me in a lot of ways, relative to like the work that we do. I'm more like the big idea, like let's look into this. But what I always was good at was perspective. And I used to get this on my review all the time. I didn't understand it when I was younger. They're like, you're really good at perspective. And I said, what does that mean? And they said, well, it means that when a program rolls out or when something comes out, you're able to look at it from the level of the CEO all the way down to the level of the custodian, right? And understand how that program is going to affect them, and then be able to communicate it in a way that people understand and get behind it. And that's a skill. That's an ability to relate to people. That's if I said what my superpower is, I think it's people. I think I'm good at understanding people and talking to people. Again, a lot of things I'm really awful at. But I think people get you a long way. I know Stacey and Jennifer, you would agree with that because you've made your careers on people, right? Mm-hmm. It covers up a lot of blemishes when you're good at dealing with folks.
Yeah, I agree. And people's skills are hard skills to teach. Those are kind of very innate. When you're going back to the hiring and stuff, it's like, what are the key questions to find out what the person's really like? And are they able to, I had a work study student from Monmouth University who I had come in young. I knew he could handle the computer, all that kind of stuff, but he shined at events, introducing himself, introducing people to other people, talking about the chamber. That's a skill that is just like invaluable. And it's true when you yeah, I agree with you, Jeremy. People are my thing.
And it's understanding and to your point, it's understanding where people are most effective and putting them in situations where they can win. There was a long time ago. There was a book that we read that we were forced to read as general managers at CompUSA. That's how long ago that was. This had to be 20 plus years ago for me. And it was a book called Discover Your Strengths, right? And the point of it was, we spend so much time focusing on what our weaknesses are and trying to make them better, right? Trying to fix the things that we're not good at. And at the end of the day, we're only going to get to mediocre at any one of those things because they're just not our strengths. If we instead focused on what our strengths were and what we're really good at and really kind of drove those things, we could be outstanding at certain things. And it's the same when you're building a team or when you're looking at a nonprofit or when you're looking at a for-profit. It's putting people in the right places to succeed and not trying to make them into something they're not or fit square pegs into round holes.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing skill to be able to assess those skills and match your people up properly with what they can do as well. Like that's a whole different skill set. What's your favorite thing about what you do?
Um, you know, first of all, I'm very blessed to be able to do exactly what I want to do. And if I don't want to do something, I don't do it. And that's, I think that's that's a blessing that my parents gave me. I worked, a long time, as my dad would say, it was like if you ever saw the movie 300. They send the young Spartan out into the wild to see if he could survive the wild, and if he makes it back, he is king. My dad always says, "We sent you out there in the wild to see if you could survive. You did okay. Now you can come back." And I'm not saying I'm king. I'm just saying like I
Right,
passed
exactly.
my exam. So I'm very blessed to be able to do that. But I got to tell you, it is being able to see, being able to see folks have a better life. Being able to see when I was in the private sector, the thing that I got the most joy out of was promoting folks, right? Was getting folks to the next level. And when people used to ask me what my weakness is, I always said, sometimes I want more for people than they want for themselves, right? And it gets me frustrated because I'm like, you could do more. Why are you not doing more, right? But and they would thank me that they got promoted and thank you to make more money. And I said, no, it's completely selfish, right? Like I enjoy, like this makes me feel good. This feeds my soul that I know that I'm, and when I am broke and penniless, you'll give me your couch to sleep on for a week until I find something to do. Okay. That's our deal, right? Make sure I can have your couch for a week. And they would say, but it's the same now. It's being able to see folks, make a better life for themselves and their families, and that's what our whole mission is as a foundation. It's not just about those that are unemployed. It's about those. My heart bleeds more in the richest country in the world for folks that are working 60 hours a week and on two jobs, two salaries, a husband and a wife, and they're still struggling and they still need to come and get food once a week. That's ridiculous that they shouldn't have access to healthcare, right? For catastrophic healthcare. I mean, we're the richest. The gap is so huge in the wage gap and the wealth gap. Anything we can do to help that it makes me happy.
That's great. I think you're going to really enjoy meeting the people from Asbury Park Music Foundation, if you're not already familiar with them, who are our arts and culture winner for Spinnaker, based on your.
I think I'm on that. I'm on the advisory board for the festival, and John Liedersdorf is a friend of mine. So yeah, they're a great organization. So
They really are.
One of the things that made us very honored to be recognized by you guys was the docket of folks that were being recognized with us, because it's it's really it's an all-star group. So that makes us very, very much more honored.
Thank you, and we're really excited because Asbury Park, the Arts and Education Center that we honored last year for arts and culture, are attending with quite a few people again this year. So we're very excited that our winners like to come back. They like to support. I actually got a call from Charlie Parton the other day, which he is a name I know and I've met a few times, but he's retired now, but still very active. And he and Trudy, because he won an award years and years ago, he and Trudy still just wanted to do an ad to congratulate everybody. And I just thought that was so nice that people stay connected, and they value the Spinnaker Awards. And, I don't know if you've heard this news, but we're actually sold out.
That's awesome.
We had to put a cap. We're operating a little bit underneath what is legally allowed because of our comfort level. But we put a cap on attendance. We've had to expand that a little bit to make allowances for some of our awardees to bring their guests. But I've been doing this. This is my fourth Spinnaker now, and I've never had this many pre-registrations this far out in front of the event. And to me, that's amazing. It shows that people want to be out again. It shows that people are supportive. I think you personally might be one of the draws that people are coming out for. I will say that with your name on the list, I think that's a big help. Um,
And the
but
fact that we bought 600 tickets. No, I'm joking.
well, you did. You are one of our Admiral sponsors. We're very honored for that. But I think it's exciting because people are coming, and we are sitting. Jill and I are sitting in the office, going, "What do we do now?" More and more people want tickets. It's a great place to be, but exciting. So it's going to be a fun event for sure.
Yeah, and it's great. To your point earlier, the 501c6s really were put in a very precarious situation by not being able to get funding, not being able to get the PPP funding and things like that during the pandemic. But the folks that stuck it out, it was so counterintuitive because this was when chambers should have been at their peak. This is when they were most necessary, right? To rally together businesses, to hear what was happening, how they could help, how other businesses could help other businesses. This was the time not to not fund them, but the ones that stuck. And you asked me earlier. I think you alluded to why I got involved with the Chamber of Commerce. I think chambers are so vitally important to hearing what's really happening on the ground for small business owners. There's a lot of huge companies in our country that drive stock prices and drive 401ks, et cetera. But the majority of folks are in the world of small business, right? And they don't get enough of a voice typically. The pandemic really accentuated that when small businesses were forced to close and the Targets of the world were allowed to thrive, right? And that made no sense. It just made no sense. But I commend you and your team for sticking to it, and that's as did the Greater Toms River Chamber. I think the ones that stuck it out there, I think are going to definitely reap the rewards of seeing folks coming back in droves now that the world is reopening.
Thank you for that compliment. We were pretty happy. We had quite a few new members join us during the pandemic. I know that it helped me be more informed and then be able to inform my members much more at how many council meetings and stuff. Sitting on NJBAI Business Coalition Committee twice a week and all the different things. And Palm Arnone was wonderful about running things for chambers and informing them of programs and, being able to have that information and be a source for not only our members, but the community, anybody who needed a question answered. Interestingly, we started putting the NJEDA Phase 4 grant information in our news releases that we put out, not from EMAC, but we can put them on our website. And some of the papers have started carrying them, and putting them out from us. And we've had people call me and say, "Can you help me with the NJEDA Phase 4 grant?" And I'm like, "No, how did you hear about us?" But it's, because we're putting the information out there. So then we can refer them to the right place.
That's great.
And that's, I know that there's a lot of chambers that weren't able to do as well, but the state chamber did a coalition, an alliance of all the chambers in the state. And those of us that have been participating regularly on that, it's been extremely beneficial to all of us because we've realized, you can be a chamber in the next town. We're not competing. All we want to do is help our businesses.
Right.
And I don't think people often realize what a chamber does. So thank you for saying what you said about chambers as well. So any last things you'd like to tell us before we sign off?
No,
did I hit all your points? Because I'm not sure I did.
I don't even know what my points are. I'm just.
Oh, okay. Well, Heather, forgive us because we may not have covered everything, but
it's, okay. It's quite all right. Trust me. We it's we're very honored to be honored by you. We weigh very heavily what we accept and what we don't accept. Because it's also our brand. Branding is very important to us. When we put our name on something, we hope that we've built over the last 8 years a brand that folks go, oh, well, if they're supporting it, then it must be a good thing. And so we take that very seriously. And so, but we were very, very excited to be asked by you guys. I would also make a quick plug that it will be the event of all due respect to the Spinnakers, the event of the season will be in September. when Fulfill is honoring me as the immediate past chair, and we're doing a roast. So I'm being roasted by a number of my friends and colleagues, including the
Stacey's definitely going to sign up for that, I think.
I need a ticket.
Kenny Malgier is going to be the host, and Jonathan will be one of the roasters, so they'll both be roasting me. But it's the feature will be a co-roasting by my ex-wife and my fiance together.
Oh, you are a glutton, man.
My kids, I think, are buying tickets for themselves and all of their friends because they want to see me get my butt kicked for an hour. So
that's pretty funny. Speaking of your kids, are they picking up on yours? You know, the generational teaching downward of the charity and the benefits and the being able to give back, and how are they?
Yeah, so it's interesting. My son is going to be is finishing his sophomore year at Rutgers. My oldest daughter will be starting Rutgers in the fall. They will both be board members, so they'll start to be getting. It's a very fine line between wanting to indoctrinate your kids and being just pushy about it. So I've definitely given them their space to decide what their lane is and what they want to do. My youngest daughter, she's 16. She's a junior currently at Toms River South, and she's the one who's she's all about it, right? Like she's the one that we have political conversations. She corrects me when I say something that's not PC.
Right.
Yeah, she's very. She keeps me in line more than anyone else I know. But listen, I'm very blessed that their mother is an amazing mother, and they're great kids, and they're also my best friends. So they'll be just fine.
That's great. That's great. I know our kids. We have a 25-year-old and a 18-year-old, and they both say the same thing. They're like, "We are who we are because mom and dad couldn't write the checks. Mom and dad did the charity things because they wanted to help raise the money when they couldn't write the checks themselves." So that's the way they grew up, and they have it as well. They're both involved. They're both doing stuff.
Well, I think we're blessed, and I know we want to wrap up, but I came home 8 years ago. Before I came home, I was running health clubs for New York Sports Club. My ex-wife was a labor and delivery nurse. We were doing fine, but we certainly weren't where I am now, right? And so my kids still have that mentality, right? Like they're not shopping at Louis Vuitton for what they need. They're shopping. They're like on Kohl's. Like they're
Kohl's is awesome.
They like Target. They like shopping at Amazon, and they like shopping at local small businesses. So they're just different. They're not those kids that are spoiled like that. So I think their mother did a great job of really keeping them grounded, even when I got too uppity. So
that's great. One last question is, how do people apply for your grants? How do they find you? How do you?
Oh, they find them.
I know.
So listen, yeah, my number is up in just about every men's and women's room in Monmouth and Ocean County. Where you can go right to our website. We're a proactive grant maker. What that means is we typically come to you and say, we'd like to support this, or we'd like to work with you on this. And the only way you kind of get to do that is by if you really are in the communities and seeing, that I don't think there's a nonprofit, a staff nonprofit in Monmouth and Ocean County that we haven't had any exposure to. So we're able to, we come to folks, but if somebody wants to have a conversation, I told you, we never say no to a conversation. So whether it's myself or Heather, we're always open for that. You can go right to gruninfoundation.org. And you can find all of our information. Email me, email Heather, email whoever you want. We're not going to ignore you. That's just not what we do.
And, everyone kind of starts to know the standard of a Grunin Foundation. So, we're all in these different circles and nonprofit. And somebody say, we think we're going to talk to Heather about such and such. And everyone just knows, well, is it this wheelhouse? Is it this? Have you done this? Do you have this prepared? Everyone just kind of knows at the level. And not necessarily in the beginning, because people will talk to Heather or Jeremy, get advice. get resources. But when they're going to make that ask, everyone just has this level of like what they know that they want to show.
Yeah, we like to say it's an open book test. We're not interested in folks filling out a 25-page grant form so that they can get rejected. Nonprofits don't have capacity for that, and that's not. We work together. If we want to work together, then we're going to figure out the answer together and go from there. And I'm very. I just one more plug. I'm the co-chair of the New Jersey Arts and Culture Recovery Fund, which has raised over $4 million to this point, specifically for arts, history, culture throughout the state, and it's been a really great effort with a lot of great partners, including folks at the Dodge Foundation, Provident Bank. I'm sorry. I'm looking at Provident Bank, Prudential, and other folks. It's been a really great thing to see. Again, to your point earlier, it's been great to see people coming together at a time of need. There's a lot of silver linings from what's been a pretty rough year and a half.
Definitely. Well, we are very much looking forward to seeing you in about 2 weeks. And enjoy your weekend in Florida.
Thank you.
Am I not supposed to disclose where you are? I don't know.
It's okay.
Okay. And then while you're there, rearrange your dad's office because the desk definitely needs to face the window with the computer with the sun behind it.
Yeah, no, there's something going on here, and we're going to talk about it as soon as this call is over. Thank you so much.
So
Thank you.
I'll be able to see your whole face at Spinnaker instead of the hat.
I know. Yeah.
Jeremy, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
We will be back in 2 weeks for our next podcast. And join us at Long Branch Distillery on Tuesday night at 5 o'clock, 4:30, I think, actually, for some drinks and snacks. Great. Thank you, guys. Have a great weekend.
Bye-bye.